Hey, my name's Dewayne Durr, and this is my story. My alcoholism started at a very young age, and it was very often. Once I got old enough to drive, you probably wouldn't catch me when I wasn't probably too intoxicated to drive if I had been stopped. But I was really a functioning alcoholic, and that went on for, I don't know, from 14 till I got married. My children's mom had a 3-year-old little girl. She was the first kid I was responsible for. We got married, had 3 more children. 2 of them during marriage were mine. The third one was not. It was a very rough patch of my life, I guess, because I stayed either drunk or high, and their mother did too. I got a divorce. Got custody of my children because she was actually messing up a little worse than I was at the time. And then my parents and all my family was gonna help me with my kids, and that was great until I got them. But the line of work I do, getting up really early and getting home really late, I couldn't do my job and raise my children. So we wound up, even though I had custody of my kids and we were divorced, we wound up moving back in with each other for the kids' sake. And I see now that was a terrible mistake, because no kid should be raised in a house where there's hollering and screaming and just chaos. That's what my kids went through for a long time. My children were old enough. The youngest one was like 12, and I was living in Hoboken, Georgia, and I come home one day, and it was just a big fuss and argument, and I said, you know what, I'm leaving. I said, whoever wants to go, get into trouble with me, but whoever chooses to stay, if we go back to court, you're old enough, you can decide anyway. So, well, my son left with me, and me and my son took a bag of clothes and went and lived in my mom and dad's backyard in a camper. And we done that, stayed in mom and dad's backyard, and I was working roadside mechanic service with my dad. He was too old to do anything, but he had the equipment, so I was a mechanic, and that's what we done. I was so crazy, I'd light a fire on a bridge while I was still standing on it. I didn't care about nobody, anything, just living life. And I knew I had to do something, so I started slacking off on my drinking and, trying to do a little better. But I had drank most of my life. I could get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go to use the bathroom, and instead of grabbing tea or water, I'd grab a beer. I mean, that's the way I was. I was a very functioning alcoholic. Nobody believed in me. I burned every bridge I'd ever had, pretty much, and I can't help but feel like that God ordained Kim in my life. She called me one night and said, hey, you want to hang out a little while? And I was like, yeah, I guess so. I said, but I'll go ahead and tell you now, I've been through about 14 years of hell, so I ain't looking for nothing. And she said, I sure ain't neither. And we just went and rode dirt roads that night. I told her I loved her. I don't even know where it come from. It just come out. And she said, don't mess around and say something crazy. I just might believe you. And from that night on, I couldn't get her out of my head. I talked to her every day. And she come and see me, and she says, I want to know the Dewayne that ain't in a can. And I said, I do too, because I hadn't never met him, I don't think. She didn't never tell me, you got to quit drinking, or we can't continue. But she give me a reason. She believed in me when nobody would. I don't know, for about 3 weeks it was pretty intense. But I made my mind up. I was gonna quit drinking, and there was some times that she said she thought she was gonna have to call somebody or take me to the hospital, but I did. From there, things turned around. We moved in together, and life was as great as I thought it could be. I mean, we didn't really have no troubles. Bought a truck, was making good money, had a truck paid for. Windstorm come up one day. We was sitting in the yard, and I watched a pine tree fall on our truck. They totaled it. And so I had to buy another truck. We had to buy another truck, and it run good for probably a year or two. And the engine come apart in it one day. It blew up. I took what we needed to get it fixed, and I left Hoboken, Georgia, went back to Patterson. I left Patterson going to work the next morning, and it dropped a valve, and pretty much, if you don't know what that means, it blew up again. It wouldn't matter if it didn't cost me 50 cents to fix it. I didn't have it. I'd done borrowed and scraped and done everything I could do to try to get it back on the road. The people that I'm contracted with, Lee and Tracy Chapman, they're really good people. He come to me and he said, listen, he said, we'll get it back going. And I said, okay. We got it fixed. The next day, I made it about a mile down the road from where it happened, and it happened again. I got it off the side of the road. I've always carried a firearm. It's just you never know. I work all times of the night and day. You never know what's going to happen, but it's mounted right under my steering wheel. And so when my truck quit, I called the mechanic that I just had working on it, and he said, well, we'll come to you and see. He said, it might be something, not bad. But I already knew because I've been around trucking all my life. And so I got out of my truck. I was waiting on them. It was early in the morning. And when I opened the door on my truck, I grabbed my cell phone and I grabbed my gun because I knew I was going to have to leave my truck. I walked around to the right side of my truck off the highway. I laid my phone down and I went to lay my gun down, and I've always been a type, just growing up, friends talking, I was like, if y'all ever hear about old Tall Boy, that's my CB handle, you ever hear about him killing himself, y'all might want to check. I said, because probably something, that ain't gonna happen. Probably something more to it. But I was to a place in my life to where the devil was on me so hard. He convinced me that I wasn't worth nothing, that I couldn't do it. He said, look at you, how are you gonna take care of your family? He said, you can't fix it. You done had help. Who you gonna get to help you this time? And so for a split second, I debated whether I should take that gun and end my life. I wouldn't have to worry about failing anymore. And it didn't last long, but it come in my mind. And that's the bullet. But I can tell you, God picked me up. He said, I ain't done with you. And I still don't know what his plan is for me, but it ain't to give up. And I hit my knees that day and I gave my life to him. And it ain't all been easy. But ever since then, it's been possible. So I'd encourage anybody that's dealing with anything, if you can surrender to him, he can help you through it.
How y'all fellas doing? I'm glad to see every one of you here tonight. And I know how Pastor feels now, just standing up here, because I just jumped around a little bit right here and I'm about to overheat. But I want to start out by saying I thank the Lord for his mercy and grace. And, you know, I've come a long way since then. And it's all because of him. But Kim and I partner with this church, and both of us serve here. We actually active in CR, helping out there where we can. But God's still growing me into what he has planned for me. And I'm very attentive and want to listen. And I prayed about this most of the day today because I really didn't know how I'd feel about getting up here. But I can't help but get up here and tell y'all what God's done for me. And he can do it for any one of y'all. So, you know, I was like, this is a bunch of men. I'm crying through most of the video, but let me tell y'all something. I'm more of a man since I met God than I ever was. So, yes. Thank y'all. Thank you.